Hey YouTube, how you guys doing? My name is Kyle, you know me as Dragonmar, and welcome to a new video. Today we are talking about calculated aggression, one of the best ways to carry games, and in this video I'm going to be going over what it is, and essentially the do's and the don'ts, right? It's all about playing smart, it's about taking calculated risks, but there's a lot of things people do wrong, and a lot of things people do right. So I'm going to give some examples, kind of explain why things are good, why things are bad, and hopefully you guys learn a thing or two from that. But we have a big announcement here, guys, and it's all thanks to you. I have put in my 2 weeks notice at work. My last day is the 16th. The 17th is officially my first day of full-time content creation. Now that is going to obviously include the Twitch stream, obviously twitch.tv/Dragonmar. Planning on streaming roughly 5 to 6 days a week, at least 6 hours a day. It's going to be a blast. A lot of good stuff in there, from VOD reviews, gameplay, grinding to Radiant, my unranked to Immortal account as well. A lot of good series coming up as well on YouTube. And honestly, it's just thanks to you guys. Seriously, your support has been unreal. This is a really good time in my life where, with everything going on in the world and everything going on in my life, what I've been able to do in my living situation, it makes sense to try this. A real dream of mine. So thank you so much, everybody. This really is just an amazing opportunity. I cannot thank you enough. I'm so appreciative of your support. Especially all you guys on Twitch. You guys have been blowing me away with your support. It means a lot. So celebrating, obviously, when this video goes live, I will be live an hour after, but the real celebration stream is on the 17th, Saturday. I will go live at noon Eastern. But hey, if you guys aren't ready, come follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Dragonmar. A lot more streams. It's going to be perfect for Act 3. We're going for Radiant, obviously. And yeah, just once again, thank you guys. This is a dream come true, and I can't wait to see what happens. But all I'm going to say is don't worry about me. I'm going to be okay no matter what happens. So don't worry. I got it. But yeah, appreciate your support. And hopefully the content I'm about to make is really going to blow you guys away. All right. So starting things off, what is calculated aggression and how does it help you carry? What does it even mean? So essentially when I'm talking about calculated aggression, aggression tends to be pretty chaotic for most players. And that's because it's very high risk, high reward. However, there is an opportunity there, I think, to make smarter plays. And the easiest way to talk about that is through examples. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, calculated aggression essentially means you're minimizing the risk while still making aggressive plays. This requires you to really think through your actions and the consequences, which is obviously good life advice as well. But in the context of Valorant, what we're really talking about is how can I minimize my risk while doing this play that's aggressive? And there's certain things people do that are aggressive, but they're careless. So I'm going to be talking about the do's and the don'ts, essentially, giving you guys examples and sort of how to essentially do this, because this is one of the best ways to carry your games, because as we know, with passive play, you sort of limit your options for really, getting that advantage in the game. But with aggression, there's a lot of options. So how can you do that, but take a smart approach to it? So let's get into that. All right, so one of the worst things you can do, one of the biggest do nots of all of aggression, is doing something that's a huge giveaway that you're pushing. So pushing is really an art form, and a lot of people do it wrong. One of the worst things you can do is pushing smokes that are completely out of place. So what happens is players will want to push something and they will do a smoke that's just kind of out in the open in a spot that never gets smoked. And guess what? People catch on to that. People know that, hey, this smoke does not belong there. And guess what? Now they have this heightened sense of security and they're prepared for you. So the idea, if you are someone who has smokes or you're playing around smokes, is you need to be very, very careful with your smokes and almost do mind games with them, where you throw just regular smokes and then you push off of those. Anything that looks super out of place is always going to be scrutinized, and it's one of the dumbest pushes in the game. When you see someone just use a really stupid smoke, it goes in this completely random spot, and you're like, yeah, they're pushing me. You wait for them, smoke clears, they're in it, you kill them. Happens all the time. Don't do that. All right, another thing you need to stop doing is stop immediately peeking flashbang. So remember when I talk about a calculated risk? Well, part of the problem here is what happens, a lot of Phoenixes actually will immediately throw their flash and then they'll just peek as the flash is going off. The problem here is a lot of times the player getting flashed will see them peek, so they'll literally see them before they're blind, or they'll immediately start following it up with a spray. And the spray generally will connect and at least do some damage. one of the best things you could do is slightly delay that swing off of the flash, just that half second or quarter second, whatever it takes. And sometimes that's all that you need to do to completely avoid the flashed player shooting you, or just the player who is not flashed yet shooting you. So very, very important. If you're going to peek that, just be very careful, you know, because you're giving yourself more risk by peeking them when they're not even flash, unless they turn, but that's a whole nother story. Now, a huge tip for you guys here is when you are getting aggressive in or near a smoke, it's very, very important that you try to find the edge of that smoke and stay around the edge. The best thing you can do, honestly, is if there is a corner of the map that is not smoked and the smoke kind of, you know, curves around that area and you can stand outside there, that's one of the best spots to be in, because that way if a player is walking slowly through the smoke, their gun might stick out, you might see them, and you have your back against the wall, which is even better. But the main takeaway here is whenever you're in a smoke and you're trying to do something aggressive, you are putting yourself at risk of being pushed in the smoke or spammed through it. One of the worst spots you could be in is in the middle of the smoke. You always, always, always want to be towards the outside or completely out and behind the smoke. Never directly in the center of it. It's almost one of the worst spots to be in, and a lot of the times you're going to get caught off guard in there as well, because someone can come in from any angle. Very important to play on the outside of smokes at all possible times. All right, you guys want to talk about a calculated risk here? How about one that has almost no downside, and that's using a Sova drone as bait or as your entry fragger. So this is one of those aggressive plays that almost always pays off. Like, this has to have like a 90% success rate. If there is a player holding an angle close, you can use that Sova drone, turn the corner, dart them, let them shoot the drone, and then immediately follow up that drone and get the kill. Obviously, you can't do this if you're Sova, but everyone else can. So very, very important, because, and you guys can ask Sova players this, not enough people do this. This is very prevalent in the lower ranks, where this is a huge problem, where you've got all these people who want to be aggressive, but no one follows the drone in. And the drone is your key. Essentially, what you also want to do is be paying close attention to the mini-map when that drone goes in. If that drone spots multiple people, maybe then you want to back off. But that's part of that calculated risk. You always want to be paying attention there. And if it does spot that guy, make sure you're getting there before his recoil resets. So you want to be close up to that drone. But it is such a good way to get aggressive, and you can make so many great plays with the Sova on your team. All right, next up is about shooting tripwires. So obviously Cypher shoots and uses trips a lot, but also we could talk about Killjoy turrets as well. So this is part of flanking. And when you're going for flanks, it's obviously pretty aggressive, but very high reward when these work out. Now, part of the problem is with the, addition of Killjoy and Cypher in the game already, you can have a lot of flanks blocked off. So always look for the jump first. If there's a jump possibility over a trip, always go for it. But another option is to not shoot the trip at all and just stand at it. You're probably thinking, what on earth? What are you talking about? Well, if you play next to that trip, a lot of the times the enemy team thinks it's safe over there, so they won't pay too much attention to where the tripwire actually is, and they won't expect someone to be standing on top of it, which is a hilarious play, by the way, but it works. Another thing I want to say is if you do want to get aggressive and there is a Killjoy turret, you can smoke off that turret sometimes, or smoke in front of it, and walk around it without the enemies noticing. Now, sometimes they will notice, but there are opportunities to make that play as well. Not enough people know that. All right, another thing I want to talk about here is going and splitting off from your team when you're taking a site. This is an extremely aggressive play, because essentially what happens is if you are attacking a bomb site, you're splitting away from your team, trying to hold a push or an angle or a tactical spot on the map that's important, and you're trying to get map control. And essentially what you do is you're cutting off like a rotation a lot of the times. This is very, very risky, because you're leaving your team alone to attack this site. Maybe it's one player, maybe it's two players in your team, whatever it is, you're leaving them alone and saying, okay, you guys take care of this, I will cover this position. Now, there is a right and a wrong way to do this. The right way to do this is you have to stay completely silent on this push. The enemy team cannot know you are not with your team on site. On top of that, it is extremely important to hold passive angles. You should not be swinging corners. If you can't get to the spot you want to be in quick enough, should not be going there. You should be staying with your team. Very, very important. If you want to cut off these rotations and go for that quick kill, that unexpected kill on someone who might have a knife out running, you have to stay silent and you have to hold those passive angles. Let them come to you. Don't go for pushes, don't go for flashes, and definitely don't make noise. Now, If there are multiple players on site still, do not leave your team. Go with your team. Never leave your team in an even odd situation if possible. Always go with them. Give yourself the man advantage. Make sure you're getting those trades. However, if there, a site's open, only one player on site, whatever it is, fine. Then go for these aggressive plays. I love it when these plays work, but when they don't, you look like such a loser. All right, defenders. Next up is something you should try, and that is flanking. However, it's about how often you do it. One thing I want to say is a lot of people get frustrated with flanks because they feel like they never work. Now, the big problem for most people is how repetitive their flanks are. And what happens is that a player will see an opportunity to do a flank and they'll do it. The next round, they'll do it again. And then a few rounds later, they'll do it again. The problem here is that the enemy team at this point is ready for it. Now, what I like to say is try to go for at least one flank per half. This is that calculated part. You're saying, okay, I'm going to throw them off one time at the very least. And if it doesn't work, at least now they have to worry about the flank. The problem here is the amount of times you do it. Now, if you really want to go for it, fine. But what I suggest is if you haven't flanked yet that half, you should probably try something, because a lot of the times people become very complacent. They're like, oh yeah, no one's pushed that way, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they're not tripping, not camming, not, putting a turret down. You can go for these flanks and get huge plays at least once per half. So if you're a very, very passive defensive player, maybe you play Cypher, I would highly suggest you go for these more calculated plays where it says, okay, I'm not going to push every round, but maybe once per half, I can go for that super aggressive play and try to catch them off guard. That generally works out a lot better than just pushing every round. All right, let's talk about tapping the bomb. This is a huge problem because not enough people understand the proper way to go for a tap. When you are going for a tap, you are just tapping it. You're not holding it for any extended period of time because that's not your purpose. Your purpose is just to tap the bomb to get the push from the enemy. Your purpose is not to try to get a half defuse. That's a completely different thing you're doing. So when you are going for a bomb defuse, you sometimes have the option with enough time left, 20, 30 seconds, you can tap the bomb. After tapping the bomb, you immediately want to start walking and pushing an angle because you want to clear as much space as you can while the enemy thinks you're on the bomb. This way you can hopefully hear them move or clear out even more area while they think you're on the bomb. By the time they peek it, you might have cleared enough space to be able to pinpoint where they are. Very, very important not to just stand on top of the bomb after you tap it. Kind of a weird play because, utility can hit you. They know exactly where you are most likely. Always important, once you tap that bomb, this is where that calculation comes in your head. You say, okay, now they know where I am. Now I have to move. That's the risky part. However, the quicker you move, the less the risk, the higher the reward, the higher the possibility of catching an enemy off guard because you'll be so far out of the position they expect you to be in. Very important to remember this. All right. Now I want to talk about working together. Communication is huge for aggression. Now, what happens a lot, especially on post plants in like a 2v1 situation, is you and your teammate defending the plant, you've already planted the bomb, the defender is coming to try to defuse. What happens a lot is you'll see one player peek, then they die, and then suddenly you're in a 1v1 situation. So this is where communication comes in. Communication is one of the most important aspects of Valorant, and in general, an important aspect of any sort of team game. But when it comes to calculated aggression, when it comes to that ability to take a risky play and make it far less risky, this is where it's all about trading and working together. So if you want to push an enemy in a 2v1, make sure you call it out. That's it. That's the tip. That's all I have to say. Just call it out to your teammate. Make sure your teammate knows. Make sure they're in a position where they can peek off of your swing and then go for it. The amount of times people silently go for fights is just infuriating because you know that they're not doing anything to help you. It's just a selfish play. Stop being selfish. Call out your pushes. Call out your swings. This is such an important part about any aggressive play style is making sure you're communicating what you're doing. And finally, the biggest thing when it comes to aggression and when it comes to playing smarter with aggression is to stay as quiet as possible. That's right, silence is key in this situation. Essentially, what we're talking about here is that everything you do can be heard. So, if you make things less audible, guess what? The enemy has less information to go off of. People don't realize this, but so many pushes, so many attacks, so many aggressive plays fail simply because the enemy is ready for you. If the enemy is not ready for you, if they do not know where you are, yes, they might still be playing cautious, but they won't have that like actual knowledge of where you are. So they'll always be guessing. It'll always be their best guess, their best estimate. And that's where you want to live. You want to live in as an estimation, as an approximation, not as a given, right? You're living in that space. And a lot of people, what happens is at some part during their push, maybe they're jumping up into a window, or, you know, they sprinted in the beginning, or they're using an ability. The enemy hears you. The enemy hears you and they know you're there. Your push is ruined. Your aggression is ruined. They know where you are. But if you stay silent during that, if you play that smart, that's when you take away any advantage the enemy has and give it all to yourself. So super, super important you remember this. And that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Obviously, huge announcement. So please, guys, do go follow the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Dragonmar. Going to be a lot of great content and a lot more streaming. I can't wait. And thank you so much for everything. Appreciate you guys so much. It's been an absolute blast making content for you, and I cannot wait for the future. Take it easy, guys, and peace.